This episode is sponsored by Sage House. Here on The Mothers, we talk to a lot of high-performing parents, and a theme comes up again and again. We all need help, but no one knows how to ask for it, especially when it comes to the myriad of things that make up the mental load. The dentist appointments, the kids' pants that suddenly don't fit, the gymnastics enrollment window that closes in 6 minutes, the dry cleaning someone needs to get, and the dinner someone has to make. All the things that aren't quite childcare and aren't cleaning and take up roughly 27% of our brains. Turns out what we need is a house manager, because the mental load is what they do. And Sage House will help you find the perfect one. They place exceptional household support across the US and Canada, and they even train nannies to step into house manager roles as your kids get older. They're also on a mission to destigmatize this kind of support. We judge ourselves so harshly for leveraging support if able. And what's so nice about Sage House and what I really connected to about their brand is that they finally make it feel logical, practical, necessary. I don't know, like working with a physical therapist to recover from surgery or partnering with a financial advisor. We don't have to do it all alone. It's also founded by a mother of 3 who obviously gets it. Visit sagehouse.com. That's Sagehouse, SAGEHAUS.com. And finally cross the invisible load off your list. I'm Sara Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Welcome back, team. I'm going to get right into it today because I am super excited to introduce you to our guest, who recently shared air with Gloria Steinem. The Gloria. And deservedly so, as she may just be leading the next wave of feminism. With her new book, Having It All, Dr. Corinne Low, professor of business economics and public policy at Wharton and mother of 2, is, to me, trying to explain the same sort of existential angst that plagued the women of Betty Friedan's feminine mystique in the 60s, and that has taken on different forms, but an equal sense of, this isn't working, but I'm not sure why or what to do about it, that's behind the subsequent waves. It's different than what powered the first wave, where over 100 years, women, and some men, fought for us to have the right to vote, which was only ratified in the Constitution in 1920. I bring this context into play because I think, among many things, what has made it harder for there to be a comfortable coalition of feminists in modern life is that the system that undermines our well-being and our ability to become fully actualized humans is incredibly opaque, relative to what, at least in hindsight, seems like a relatively clear impediment to women's equality, the right to vote. Across racial lines, I should say, too. Since then, the problems are everywhere and nowhere. It's why the housewives of Friedan's work spoke of the problem that has no name. On some level, they had it all, but they were also deeply unhappy. And like women are trained to do, we blame ourselves. We take responsibility first before wondering if it's warranted. We find a way to make it work. Corinne's data-backed, thank you, book, Having It All, says otherwise. It's not our fault. This problem that has a million names, but not a singular one, is not our fault. Something happens to us. Even the most, quote, ambitious in the Sheryl Sandberg sense. Corinne cites research that blew my mind. That if you follow the highest achieving women as measured by those in the 90th percentile of their MBA programs, 12 years from graduation, those top performers are in the same place professionally as the average man. That stat tells us it's not our fault. These are the women that we all aspire to be, sort of. We were told we could be. They leaned in, they showed real grit, and yet something got in their way. Here's where Corinne is a badass. You'll hear her say this in the interview, but it deserves to be emphasized again. After we discussed this research, she says simply, and so I am never, ever going to blame women for the fact that there aren't as many of us in positions of power. It's not women who are letting us down. The people I'm disappointed in are the people with actual power. I'm disappointed in policymakers. I'm disappointed in corporate leaders. I'm disappointed in the men who aren't being supportive at home. But it is not the women who are letting us down. It makes me choke up to say it out loud, too, because this is so true on so many levels in America right now. The people with actual power today have dropped the ball so badly. Most are not remotely living up to the responsibility that comes with power. But Corinne is. This interview and her work is rooted in her own lived experience, which I will not ruin for you. I'll let her tell you her own story, and it's a juicy one in the best way. But I will say, thank you, Corinne, for fighting power with facts and your own raw human experience. Thank you for going through shit and deciding to hold the systems around you to account instead of blaming yourself for what was never your fault. Your truth makes us brave. And a courageous group of women may just save the world again. So please enjoy my interview with Corinne Low. You can hear me and see me?
Yeah, I can be fine. Usually I have like a more sophisticated setup, but because of that juggle, I'm at home. So it's kind of, we're bare bones. But I was glad when I saw the prep doc and it was like, you don't actually need a mic and whatever.
This is how we roll. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Try to make hard things
work.
as
I have, like,
easy
the
as
mic
possible.
And the lights and the whatever, but no.
No, you look great.
All right, great.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm very honored that you are here. I'm so impressed by your brain. I love what you wrote. I love what you're talking about and like how it all came to be. And I have so many questions. I really enjoyed reading the book and it's so funny. I feel like throughout it, I think I'm slightly EQ led versus IQ, if we can even boil it down to all of that. So I was reading it sometimes being like, hell yeah. And sometimes being like, what the fuck? What about love? You know what I mean? Like very idealistic, but also trying to live in a rational world, which I feel like you kind of nailed that. And we'll get into this, but I feel like there's some beautiful tensions that percolated throughout. And to me are very much.
I love that reaction. I love that.
Yeah, good. It kind of, to me, it was like, this is the dance of womanhood in America, where it's like, embrace all that is woman, but also like, be cautious because there are objective trade-offs. So anyways, as you kind of know, I feel like the theme of this podcast is finding really, people that are out there, I talk about it as like making a dent in the universe, but people that are out there kind of really trying to spread their truth, make an impact, have a meaningful career and life, however they want to define that, and also happen to be raising children. And certainly, as your book formalizes, typically those mothers are doing a lot more at home than others might be. So they're kind of like doing more than it all. And so your book and your whole story really are perfect for this. So I'm very excited to get to know more about your story. I know you share about it in the book, but would love to hear you say it out loud. And then pick apart some themes that relate to both your story and then as that's reflected in the book too.
Well, I'm so excited to dive into this with you. And I just have to say, like, because my brain has been churning, as you said, that thing about like, but just love and, these feelings. And then, we're living in this broader world. And I was like, I think that's one of the things that's so complex because like, there's been this conversation on social media happening about whether like making holiday magic is like invisible labor or whether it's something that we do for fun or because because we love it. We love our kids. But that line is so fine when then those things that we do for love gets exploited. Right.
Yes.
So it's one thing to be like, yes, I love being with my children. I love making our house a cozy place. I love cooking a delicious meal. But then when we are doing all of that and getting nothing in return, that's when it becomes that invisible and uncompensated labor. So that is why I do think that there is that fundamental tension in our roles and attention that I do really try to acknowledge in the book to be like, this isn't about resenting our roles as mothers, because I feel like there was an earlier wave of feminism that was almost pushing to be like, just view motherhood as like a speed bump on the path of like our real true purpose, which is like having a career,
Totally. Yes.
I don't view it that way. And I know so many women who don't view it that way, who really view motherhood as part of the integrated purpose of our lives. But then it's like, why bring economics into it? Well, because I do think we still need that analysis of like, are we getting the support that we need? Are we fundamentally getting a fair deal from the others around us as we pour our caring and our love out there into them?
Yes, absolutely. And trying to rationalize that based on emotional metrics versus economic metrics is an ongoing process of rationalization. And something that I feel like I want to hear your story. I'm leading into it, what I will say, and I'm curious what happened to you because we always say like, let's hear your story. How did we arrive at where we are today, and when did kids come on the scene? I will say that I personally, with each child, had this like feminist awakening, very much of what you're
Mm,
describing, which in different ways and on a deeper level each time, being like, it can't. Why is it this way? Like, it
yeah.
doesn't need to be this way. But apparently maybe it does, and it starts, even just, the hospital experience and the delivery experience and then the childcare around it, and then all these things that you start to, I feel like, after having a series of children and living in the world long enough, another theme that we end up hitting often is like, where is my agency? Did I want any of this? I think
Yeah.
I did on my own, but sometimes I'm like, was I conditioned to kind of want these things or not? I know that speaks, you bring that up related to your marriage, maybe even sexuality for you, as to like, what are these roles that we take on? When did we realize what we choose versus what we are conditioned to choose on some level? But before I blather on too long, I want to hand the mic to you for sure. And I would love to hear how we get to Corinne of today, professor at Wharton, author, speaker, mother, finder of, I think you said, Love After Love, which I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. So yeah, how would we describe ourselves and our journey? And if are there any like through lines that pop to you today in the early days of January?
Yeah. Well, yes, so many and so much that relates to the work that you do, on this podcast because motherhood is like a galvanizing moment. It can be a radicalizing moment.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was a moment of really bring to the fore two different forces. And I'm talking about, the first child that I had in 2017. I say in the book, I gave birth to a son and also a midlife crisis because it brought these two forces to the forefront, both of which shocked me to my core. The first was how much how deeply I cared about being a mother, about being a good parent, about how my commitment to this tiny being as a focal, central force in my life really surprised me. That before I had a baby, that I might have been the person who said, yeah, I'm going to breastfeed if it works. If it doesn't work, I'm not. I'm not going to fuss too much about pumping when I go back to work. I breastfed and pumped for 2 years. Okay.
Mhm.
And, obsessed over like,
Yeah.
no, we're not gonna have formula, no, right? And the strength of those preferences can almost knock you over if you're someone who has prided yourself as being a kind of rational agent
Yeah.
because we're fundamentally not rational. The love and care that we have for our offspring, we have got millions of years stacked against whatever we think is like going on in our brain
Mhm.
rationally, right?
Yes.
So that was the first force that really surprised me. And then the second force was the gender inequality, was this myth that I had told myself that me and my husband could be equals and that me and my male colleagues could be equals. And now I'm seeing that my male colleagues are having a fundamentally different experience becoming
Mhm.
parents, that this is not impacting them the same way from pregnancy, that they're not puking between classes, to pumping, that that's not something that they have to fit into their day, right? To just how much they care.
Mm.
They are not agonizing over the work trip. And is there a way I can do this in a there and back in the same day so I don't have to spend an overnight, right?
Mhm.
They are not heartbroken and bereft that they have to leave this tiny being in somebody else's care and go into work. They're
Mhm.
happy that they're
Mhm.
back at work. They're happy that they're back kind of serving their own intellectual interests. And that same wedge I saw at work, I also saw open up at home in what became more than a wedge, became a chasm in my marriage.
Mhm.
And that I felt like, and I write in the book that, well, suddenly my center of gravity was my son. And for so many of the women and new mothers that I was friends with, that was the same thing. Our husbands continued to be the centers of their own universes.
Mhm.
And for my now ex husband, that meant pursuing his own individual ambition, kind of regardless of the impact on our family, regardless of whether that actually added up for our family.
Mhm.
And so that set me on a very radicalizing path of really trying to understand like why things were still so gender unequal and trying to rewrite for myself a narrative of feminism that could include this passionate devotion to motherhood and to children that I had and make space for the fact that I did want to have a career, that I did want to contribute to society.
Mhm.
And so I'll end by saying that on this book tour experience, one of the most shocking moments has been that I had a male journalist ask me, "Well, if you were struggling with balancing career and family, why didn't you just leave your job?"
Mm.
And if you've read the book, then you
Oh
know
God.
that at the time I was juggling and struggling with all these things, I was our household's primary breadwinner.
Mhm.
And
Right.
that is true for the majority of working women, not necessarily that they're the breadwinner, although many of them are, but that their income is meaningful and substantial in the
Mhm.
household's budget. That is true
Yeah.
for the majority of working women. And so, this idea that our jobs are hobbies that are kind of easily dispensed with if they become inconvenient in the path of motherhood is equally wrongheaded as that other idea that is like our kids are just speed bumps on the path to our career, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, writing the book and sharing my story was really about helping women carve out a path that let them define their all. You know, the book is
Mhm.
called Having It All, but
Yeah.
let women define their all and not apologize for choosing what they want and prioritizing those things, but also for it looking different than if you are the man merrily skipping, the father merrily
Mhm.
skipping on his way to work, who is able to just focus on work, or if you're the mother who's able to be 100% focused on that domain.
Mhm. I was like debating whether to ask this question, but let me just get it out of the way at first because there's a little bit of a are all do all dads suck? This came up in our last episode actually where we had watched because it was trendy and we were doing a holiday special, we watched All Her Fault. I don't know if you like survived through this series, but it's very like trendy. I wouldn't entirely recommend it, but it just presents fathers as totally inept. Exactly like very much what you're saying as kind of clueless, just like incapable of supporting a wife partner, like sort of fumbling through fatherhood, very happy to get out of the house and go to work. My personal, well, absolutely my personal experience is different. I have a very involved husband who has a very ambitious career and also is very ambitious about how he's involved here. So we have something that maybe is entirely unique. I'm just curious to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Are
Well,
all
let me
dads bad?
I don't think that all dads suck. I think
Yeah.
that, there are lots of dads who are super involved.
Yeah.
I think that it takes work to counter both biological and societal programming.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you something, Sarah, even though
Please.
you are the unicorn who's saying, look,
Well, I'm probably, yeah, go, please.
I
Yes.
I have this relationship with somebody who is equally ambitious at home as he is at work. Were there not moments after having each of your children where you were like, I can't believe how out of sync we are. I can't believe how that he's on this planet over there and that required a little active resetting?
Yeah. I think the moments that came up the most were ones where I flexed my empathy muscles to know that this was something that was hard for him to understand. I think early days in particular,
Yeah.
the tax on the delivery body and
I
psychologically and hormonally and all these things and just the labor that only the mother and the delivering mother could do was something that I knew he couldn't understand and couldn't support in the way that I didn't even know how to ask really. So there are early days and I think it got better with each. We have 3 kids now. Um, I got better about articulating what I needed and what was acceptable, not acceptable, but like what was realistic, how this could realistically work so that the whole house was okay. And a little less resentful of things that I had to kind of just swallow in service of the overall team being good and recognizing there are things that he takes on. So it's not to say, I think my overarching point was that I think there are many, like, I like to think about how I think a woman's trajectory in life, certainly professionally, has so many things thrown at it that we need to like maneuver around. And in order to stay, and as your book showed, like one of the more horrifying data points that I saw was like the top highest qualified, most achieving women in the world. After 12 years, their careers wind up where like the average man is. Is that essentially what it was?
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so
That was
I
the
think
earnings
there are
program.
things, yeah, there are things where it's a man, on average, a man can live a more linear existence. Like they don't have to accommodate. I often think about even just like getting a period, like from the very beginning. Like there are things that are thrown at us that we can't just do what we want to do.
Yeah,
And
so
so,
that's
yeah,
exactly so returning to that question of, like, do dads suck? It's like that I think if you'd asked me prior to having a baby, I would have said that if you kind of selected the right guy, that equality could be the default. And I
mhm,
think what I've come to believe is that achieving some kind of equality within the household requires active work, no matter if the intentions are there or not,
yeah,
because we are swimming upstream of
yeah,
some biological programming differences, which
yes,
is just like what it takes to produce offspring, but also the chemical process of being pregnant and giving birth that makes us kind of innately
totally,
bonded with our offspring immediately, right? And a lot of societal programming around gender roles. And so you see
yes,
that in the data that when, a man loses his job, he doesn't reorient to say, "Oh, okay, I'll just focus on the house because that's how I can be useful." When a woman loses her job, you see her time doing home production goes way up, and when a
hmm,
man loses his job, it doesn't.
yeah,
The woman in the house is
totally,
often still doing more even though he's unemployed, and so you actually see his leisure time go up a lot.
yeah,
Well, what
yeah,
that shows me is that there's a cultural script, right? A societal script that's running counter to the realities of the household. And that's where it
yeah,
comes back to my story is that, after having a baby that my husband decided to leave his job, sorry, to leave his job to start a business. So
Freudian slip,
discretionarily decided to leave his job.
yeah,
And um and so it became that I was the sole breadwinner.
yeah,
And then COVID hits, and I'm watching in all of, my, male colleagues' households that their wife is the one taking the hit. Their wife is the one picking up the pieces of the fact that suddenly
yes,
you don't have childcare. And in my household, even though I'm the sole breadwinner and I'm on the tenure track at Wharton, and this is a job that's gonna give us kind of permanent financial stability if I'm able to keep it, and it's
hmm,
really critical if I'm able to work to be able to keep it, my job was given no priority, right?
yeah,
That my husband still kind of had this narrative, this cultural script that like his individual ambition was what took priority over the needs of the household. And
yeah.
so
That's
um
crazy to me.
I think you have to swim upstream of
Yes,
that programming, and I think there are men who are willing to do that and men who are kind of and are willing to put in the work, and those are the men who are gonna stay married.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I will say this is not. I love my husband, so I can't. He's phenomenal. Yet, I think the societal elements are still true for me. Like I have and continue to have a meaningful career, work at important places, was at Google for a long time, but I make less money than he does.
Mhm.
And I am the default, she fault, whatever you want to call it. I'm the one that the
Mhm.
school nurse calls today. So there are definitely roles, and yet we've fallen into, despite it surprises me, but it also I kind of wrestle with, is this good or bad? And I exist in a privileged place. So I think that's a lot of what's going on, but have fallen into kind of traditional gendered experiences. And yet we
Mm.
both are finding meaning and impact in our careers. He
Mhm.
carries a lot of the financial pressures and burdens that are real. I carry a lot of the household pressures and burdens that are also real. And I think over time, we try to think about that as you mentioned this in your book too. There are chapters and seasons for all of these things. And, I left a big stressful role that was I really enjoyed to move into something that was more meaningful and gave me more flexibility and control while his work kind of took over all of his
Absolutely.
time. And so I think, again, going back to like thinking about it as an overarching team, and he will often say like, you're next, like he can't wait to stop working. He would love to be home and I could go off and do something that is overly demanding and crazy, which I think is
And a
another
little bit
thing
more
that you.
lucrative, yeah.
Yes, which I love that you talk about this. And you wrote it's in your book. I know you've written some separate pieces about this, but how flexibility isn't necessarily what we want, but how we just need boundaries at
Yeah.
work and how
Yeah.
that's just what it requires of anyone to succeed in a lot of these the highest paying organizations. They expect you to be available 24/7, which is
Yeah.
not compatible with being a parent.
Yeah, and it's
But
not compatible, like, it's also getting in the way of people like your husband thriving in those roles, right?
yeah,
Because people who men who actually do genuinely wanna contribute at home, right?
yeah.
Then, it's getting in the way of them showing up too, and so I think firms have a lot to lose, by not taking seriously how do you make work work for working parents, and I think they have everything to gain because the firms that do it well, they're gonna have a competitive advantage in retaining the top talent.
Totally, totally. There's we talk a lot about figuring out what you want. And I think a theme in your book, overarching theme, is sort of figuring out what you want, figuring out what is in a very realistic way. Like, how can you put together a life that is fulfilling, fulfills the basic functions, and ideally above that within the existing constraints of our lives. And I was curious how, I think just fundamentally thinking about what one wants is something that I think a lot of women kind of lose track of between maybe the ages of like 14 and 40 because like it's not about what you actually want, or your wants become more related to what does everyone else need. But I was curious just in your life how you have navigated, how you figure out what you wanted to do and what you wanted your life to look like. And I'm sure that vision evolved at certain milestones. I'm sure children affected that, and
Yeah.
divorce and married and all these things. But I was just curious, like how you've figured that out along the way. Acknowledging that there are times that you probably lost track of that, which is important to say. We don't always know
Right.
clearly what we want. But yeah, how have you? And we could bring
Yeah.
in the personal utility functions and our constrained optimums, which are very. It's like a light in the darkness often of this swirl. But yeah, how did you do
Yeah,
it?
yeah, so the book gives this framework that is, what are we here to maximize? What are we
Yeah.
doing on Earth? And the idea is that you're maximizing your utility, which is the kind of sum total of your joy and fulfillment and meaning over the course of a lifetime. And it's more than happiness. And I think like there's a lot, it's kind of trendy to talk about like happiness or joy or whatever, but
Hmm.
that's actually not what we're maximizing for because, we want to seek out meaning. It's like if
Hmm.
we're just looking at happiness, then like it doesn't make sense to, like, spend time by the side of a dying family member, but for
Hmm.
many of us, it's one of the most meaningful things that we could do with our time, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the term utility is useful, and I think the book really lays out this framework, and it is something that I figured out as I went along, and for many of us, women, I think we follow this, like, kind of predetermined script, and for me,
Hmm.
that script was career first, and
Mm.
then children second, and then when I introduced children into the equation, everything stopped working, and I had to rewrite the script, right?
Yeah.
So that was how it was like kind of, all right, career, marriage, and I talk about in the book that for me, marriage was like, "Okay, I met a guy who's nice, he says he's a feminist, we seem like we have shared values, we have fun together, let's get married," right?
Yeah.
Without thinking about this as like hiring a co-CEO. You're
Yes.
hiring a life partner. And like, how is this person going to support exactly that vision of what you want your life to look like? And maybe I wasn't able to do that because I didn't have that vision yet. Right.
Mhm.
And the way that vision became really crystal clear to me was through what I didn't want. So when I
Mhm.
was so busy and depleted and stressed out that I couldn't enjoy my infant son, I knew that wasn't what I wanted. Right.
Mhm.
When I saw that we were, you know, like eating takeout every day and our house looked like a mess and, my day-to-day life felt like a grind, I knew that wasn't what I wanted, right? And so I had to kind of piece by piece try to navigate my way out of a place where really nothing was working. And I wasn't enjoying my work either because my work had just become about the stress of even though I liked on paper and in theory, I liked the work that I did, because I had this big milestone of tenure that I had to achieve, my work just became about the stress of like, "Oh, I'm gonna write this paper, it's gonna get rejected,
Mhm.
and that's gonna be hard," right? And then maybe mean that I'm gonna lose my job, which is like, it's not just hard, it's not just sad. It's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, it's gonna, like, meaningfully impact my future financial stability." So I had to define and find what I wanted as I went along, and through the process of kind of blowing it all up, I got to start over a little bit and do that add back in the pieces that I wanted. And so I knew that living in Manhattan wasn't working for me. And I say this in the book that one of the biggest ways we set ourselves up for failure is living in a really high cost of living place
Mhm.
because end up then on the treadmill of you have to earn more money because you have to afford the bills. But if you just live someplace where like not everybody goes to private school, for
Yes.
example, and where, like, you don't, need to have, like, a house that takes up your entire paycheck, like,
Yeah.
suddenly you have more career possibilities, right? So these
Mhm.
constraints are intertwined with each other. So just moving to Philadelphia for me was a big change, and then finding a neighborhood where I could have community support, where things could be walkable, where, there was a playground nearby. Um, and then I could add in the dimension of a partner and what did I want a partner to look like? And the second time around, I knew I wanted a partner who had a shared vision with me of, you know, other things in life mattering than just our careers, than just our individual ambitions. So,
Mhm.
I wanted life to feel like, and I actually made a vision board and the exercises
Love
in the
it.
book of doing this of like, I wanted life to feel like, you know, warm lived in spaces. I wanted there to be outdoor time in nature. I wanted there to be healthy, nourishing food prepared together. And I literally wrote down those phrases.
Mhm.
And then I spent the next couple years finding a way to fill my life with those things and finding a partner who wanted those things too.
I could not agree more. I forget what there was some trendy book philosophy for a while. This idea of writing with great without self-judgment in great detail what you want your life to entail on a daily basis, how you want it to feel, what you want what really is a profound and powerful activity. And I think people I often they came up a lot. Most of the people around me are either partnered up or not going to be. And but in early days when they were working on that, that was one of the big activities that we would like kind of suggest is did you write down exactly what you really are looking for in a partner, what you're really looking for in a life or in a career, etc. It really is clarifying and powerful.
Yes, and I think people are hesitant to do it because it feels so wistful because they're like, "Well, I can't materialize this person." This isn't like there was this, like, '80s movie, Weird Science, where they, like, put their dream girl into a computer and then it, like, made her, okay?
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
"We can't do that. I can't, like, easy bake oven this partner or
Yes.
this life, so, like, why
Yes.
would I write it down?" But the thing is, like, when you look at your career, you kind of know what you're headed for. You know you're trying to get that promotion. You're trying to, like, make this rank or whatever it is. So then you shape your decisions in accordance with that.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you're trying to achieve in partnership or in life, then you don't know what choices you should be making, right? And so
Mhm.
you really need to define a North Star because then you find out that there is actually a level of agency that you do have, right?
Mhm.
Because you realize that if you wrote down a lot of stuff about warmth and community and family time, that maybe solving for living in the biggest, nicest house isn't the right thing to be solving for, right? Or
Mhm.
maybe it's less important to like get that new car than it is to have that little bit of financial ease that's going to let you take your foot off the gas at work and spend more time at home.
Totally.
Or like as was my case, like with dating, like if you don't define this is what I want my life to feel like, then you can't stand strong in your decision to break up or move on from a partner who's actually fine, right? And
Yeah.
someone you say like, okay, this could be good enough. Like I like this person, I get along with this person. But if you're very clear in what you want life to feel like, if you are very clear in exactly what you want, then you've got to be honest with yourself and say, like, no, this isn't it. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, I think it's so important. It's, you cannot solve this is again my logic brain, but you can't solve a maximization problem if you don't know what the objective function is.
Mm.
And so by getting very clear on what you want, that's the only way that you can actually make the right choices to move towards it.
Yeah. You're so brave. I feel like and it's nice to meet you in realish life, but like reading your story, it's no small thing to go through divorce, to pick up and move to a new place, to like, that's takes real courage. And I wonder where did it, you don't actually asking you this doesn't seem like that may have surprised you, but a lot of people you mentioned this too. It's easier to remain stagnant. It's easier to kind of just sit in what isn't great because it's so much harder to move into the unknown. That's probably going to be better, but it's unknown.
No, I
I'm
want to
really
be
impressed.
honest with I'm gonna be really candid with you, with the listeners to say, and this was a part that I it disappoints me about myself, but
Mm,
what let me find the strength to make those changes was when the situation wasn't working for my son
mm,
anymore. And it was not working for me for a long time, and it wasn't until I saw it affect him in a really serious way that I said, "We can't do this anymore."
yeah.
And after I made those changes, and then I saw because I was terrified. I was so scared that being a single mom was gonna be impossible, that I was taking a hard situation, and I was actually making it worse. That
Mhm,
was not the case, right?
mhm,
Things got easier, things got better. My life blossomed before me when I had
mhm.
the strength to make those changes. But then when I saw that, when I saw how much happier I was, when I saw how much possibility there was that I had been denying myself, I really felt grief and disappointment that I would never have made those changes for myself, for me alone, that I
Mm,
hadn't thought that I deserved this more, that I only found the strength, for my child.
wow.
And I think that is a message that I really try to put in the book, that some of that same strength and magic that we find for our kids, the, like, amazing things that we do for our kids, the fact that that, if you had to lift a car off of your child, that you could, right? But even the metaphorical car, right? If
Yeah.
you find that for your child, I want us to find it for ourselves.
Mm,
The way that we take care of and we prioritize the experience, the lived experience of our children, because they're people that we love. So we care. We care that, oh, when you come home from school, I want it to feel like this. I want you to get to do this activity on the weekend. I want you to get to eat this meal. The way we prioritize the lived experience of our children, I want us to do it for ourselves because we do it for people that we love. We have to be someone that we love.
mhm. Have you been able to maintain that way of living on this other side?
I check in with it. I definitely check in with it because
Yeah.
it is like a I realized that, where everything went so off course, it's not about blaming my husband. It's about letting the focus be anything but me and letting my own needs be the last priority of our entire household, right?
Mhm.
And so now, my question, my checkup, and the thing I tell other people to use too is to say, look, if something's not working for me, it's not working for our family.
Mhm.
So every step of the way, does this actually work for me? Is this working for me? Does this make sense? Can we make this sustainable? And so that's, as because you have older kids, you get into the older kids and it's like, well, they want to play soccer across town or they want to
Yeah.
join the hockey league at the same time as this. And you have to check in with that. Does this actually work for me? And so it's an ongoing process of making the decision to let my own needs be part of the governing discipline of our household.
Yes. Does that relate to one of a term that I'm trying to like erase from society, mom guilt? You talk about it a little bit in the book too. But how do you experience mom guilt? How do you help others not experience it? Because I think it's yet again blaming ourselves, or we become the problem. But yeah.
Yes, yes. And, I think when I moved to Philadelphia and I blew up my life, I actually saw that meeting my own needs was so important for my child as well. And so
Mhm.
the things I was worried I was doing for him, I was like, I'm breaking up his family or whatever, right?
Mm.
Once I was okay because I was able to connect and be present with him and be such a better mom because I had put on my own metaphorical oxygen mask first, like that immediately rewrote the script, right? That me taking care of me was taking care of us, was taking care of our
Mhm.
family. And so I think that's one important way to think about it, to say, and like, even when it comes to like your health, that actually like exercising and going to the gym is taking care of your family as well, because that's about you being able to keep up with the grandkids. That's about them having longer before it switches from you helping them to them having to help you in the future, right? And this is,
Mhm.
as this is a reality right now, I think for so many of the moms who are listening, who are part of the sandwich generation, right?
Mhm.
Understanding that the choices that you make now, they also make your kids' life easier in the future, right? So
Yes.
that's one lens I think that we can put on to kind of erase that mom guilt, is to say that when I take care of myself, that is a choice to take care of our family, to take care of our household.
Yeah.
The other time that I experience mom guilt, though, is actually a desire, and then I think we shouldn't call it guilt. It's actually a desire
Yeah.
for me to spend more time with my kids because I want to,
Yes.
right? So it's like "Oh, I'm sad I missed that because I wanted to be there." And
Yes.
that's another way we can reframe, is instead of it making it like, "Oh, this is like an obligation that I wasn't able to do," to clock that as a desire, and then to ask ourselves to acknowledge, and in this framework of utility, that's something that I get utility from.
Mhm.
I want to cuddle my baby more. Like for me, I could say, I have so much mom guilt. I was on this book tour and I missed too much time with my baby who's now 8 months old.
Mhm.
But it's actually not mom guilt. It's actually, I wanted that because I would have enjoyed that experience because I
Yes.
love spending that time with her. So that's something that I want. That's something that gives me utility. How do I want to design my life now in this next phase, now that that initial madness of the book launch has faded? Oh, I'm going to make choices now to say I'm going to be more selective with the opportunities that I'm going to take, because I recognize that one of my desires is to spend time with my kids. And so when you rewrite it that way, it gives you back agency to say, oh, there's a lot of things that give me utility. There's a lot of things that I want to do. So I'm going to kind of make smart choices about meeting all of these different needs, all of these different sources of utility, instead of just viewing it as this kind of like external obligation or guilt.
Yes. And I love that. Thank you. Because I think guilt also suggests, by definition, that we are doing something wrong. If you're guilty, you murdered someone. You know what I mean? Like, you should feel guilty. But instead, it's more that we're bummed. Like,
Yeah,
we
that's
want
right.
to and we can't. And that doesn't feel
Yeah.
good. But to your point, maybe we could, if it really doesn't feel good over time, can we adjust life in a way that allows us to be there more so we don't have to
Yeah,
feel
and
bad
not out
as
of guilt or
much?
obligation, but out of actually following our own desires, out of actually
Yeah.
following the things that bring us utility in life.
Yes, yes. Can you give sort of like the 30-second stump speech for how to, for folks that are listening, all of us are kind of, navigating. Some of us are lucky and have, or not lucky, but have built their way or listened our way or identified our way towards living a life and working professionally in an area that feels, where things feel
Mhm.
pretty good. But I think a lot of us are also in stages of reevaluating that or trying to figure out what's next. The personal utility function, I'm just curious, for folks who are listening who are tr- they're like, what I'm doing now isn't what I want to be doing, but I don't know what to do instead.
Yeah.
Is there a way that personal utility function, that concept, can be used to help them, in practice, kind of figure out what is the better next step, or what kind of world, what kind of life do I want to be building for myself?
Yes, absolutely. And I hope that people, if they want to continue and learn more, they can pick up the book. There's an audiobook, because I know people often don't get time to read, but maybe you get time to listen. So if you listen to a podcast, you could listen to an audiobook.
Yeah,
And there's also a workbook that's available for free on my website that goes through the exercise of kind of figuring out your utility function.
perfect. I'll link
But
to that in the descriptions notes too.
a very first step is to think about what your life would look like if you faced fewer of the constraints that you have right now, because your life is set up in response to constraints, right? The way you figure out what brings you utility is you say, if I were a mega billionaire, money were no object, close your eyes and say, what would my day to day life look like? How would I be spending my time? How would I feel? What things would I have? Right. And all of those things that you picture are things that bring you utility, right? But it's going to vary from person to person. And that's why we can't compare ourselves to people who don't have the same utility function as us. Because for one person, they're going to say, oh gosh, I really wish I could buy nicer clothes and I could have a bigger house and I could drive a nicer car and I want to take more luxury vacations. Well, that actually money is pretty important in you getting what you want. And so it might make sense to prioritize career a little bit more, because you need to grow your career to kind of have more money to get more of what you want from your utility. because we face real constraints that like in reality, if you want those things, you have to buy them. But
Yeah.
somebody else might say, well, if money were no object, I would spend time on artistic pursuits. And I would be really present with my kids and I would, do more pickups after school and I would do more crafts with them. And I would spend more time running or swimming or doing whatever my hobby is, right? And so for those people, then you might be over indexing on career success because you
Mhm.
did name a lot of things that actually needed money, right? You named a lot of things that needed time. And so, are you putting too much of your time into career pursuits relative to what your utility function is? And for each of those things, even though we can't wave a magic wand and create that vision that you had, because that vision was the unconstrained vision, you can get more of the things that you pictured if you start to reprioritize your time and your money and the choices that you make with your constrained resources.
Mhm.
And so that's why it is empowering to think about what your utility function is and to acknowledge that it's unique. Because if it's everybody wants the same thing, of course, everybody wants a yacht, then it feels disempowering. It's like, well, I can't afford a yacht. But it's like, if I close my eyes, I actually don't want a yacht, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not actually the thing that comes to the forefront. So when you figure out what comes to the forefront for you, you actually can get more of that thing.
Mhm. I love that. I it was I feel like my shoulders relaxed when I was reading the section where you were talking about the importance of not self comparing your choices or your life to people with a
Yeah.
different utility function or different constraints and I was like, you're right, because I don't know, comparison is a thief of joy, and it really is true. Just because they're doing that doesn't mean that that's what you even want. But it's really important to catch ourselves because
Yes.
we're encouraged to compete.
I have to say it over and over again, especially in regards to career, because I think for women, we don't just feel it because of the typical like reasons for pursuing your career, which is like you want to make money and you want to like be perceived as successful. But for
Yeah.
women, we also feel like we want to do it for feminism. Like, it's
Yes.
like, oh,
Yes.
I don't want to be another female economist who's not publishing as
Totally.
much
Oh my
other,
god. Yes. Yes. Everyone
so
works so hard so I can have an opportunity to like be in the corner office. I should
yeah.
go there.
So then you have to
Yes.
like really keep repeating to yourself, the reason I am not achieving that is because that is not what I want.
Mm,
It's like for me to achieve that thing, I could achieve that thing if I put all of my time into that bucket. And
yeah.
here's all of the things I would lose out on if I made the choice to pursue that thing.
Yeah.
And you really have to keep repeating it yourself every time you have that temptation to be like, oh, but she accomplished this thing, or oh, but he got this award, or
Mhm.
this thing happened, and if I just work harder, I can do that. To be like, I am not working harder because I don't want to, because that is a choice of where to invest my time. And if I
Mhm.
invest my time in that, I cannot invest my time in these other things that bring me more joy than that thing because of what my utility function is
Yes.
relative to that person whose utility function is different.
Yes. Okay, I'm giddy because this is the perfect transition to the meaty topic that I really want to talk to you about, which is like really bugging me. This lean in ambition gap. There aren't enough women in leadership at work. It's because we're not ambitious enough. I mean, there are nuances to it, but that was what like the media ran with. Um, you've written about this online a little bit, but like, what's your take? So for everyone, I think that's listening is probably familiar, but Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg's organization, which is all in a initial, like well intentioned, I think, trying to figure out how to have more women at work in positions of power, which I do think women in power in the corporate world is not a bad thing if they really want to be there because we can make change from within, etc. But they run this report annually, I assume, seeing how that's playing out. And lately, it's never looked great, but it's still not looking awesome. And one of the theories was, or one of, not even theory, but one of a way that they suggested that this was, or reason for this happening, where there are more men than women in these executive positions, was that there's an ambition gap, quote unquote. And tell me what you think.
Oh god, it just makes me so tired to still be
Yeah.
having that conversation on those terms, and I think my book is really meant as an answer to Lean In,
Mhm.
and that's, like, because the message of Lean In is that your career is the purpose of your life, and I don't think that that's true, and I am like, as soon as you said, like, "Yes, there should be more women in leadership," I was like, "For who?" And then you said, like, "Oh, because they can change things from within." I was like, "Okay, fine, yes." There's like a
But we
broader
don't
yes.
have to.
like this idea that like we have to sacrifice ourselves at the
Hmm.
altar of this broader purpose instead of it being like a societal responsibility, right? To say like, oh, why aren't there more women in leadership? Because there are systems and structures that are still not working for women,
Yeah.
right? This isn't about women's individual ambition, right? In some cases, this is about women's ambition becoming properly calibrated to the level of support that they actually have, and therefore acknowledging, like you did, you said you made a choice to go from like what would be like the more ambitious path to the path that
Hmm.
actually worked better for you. So
Hmm.
that is ambition then
Yes.
for like having a thing that works for you, for having a
Hmm.
successful, rich, rewarding life where success is not defined by having the corner office or having the hefty paycheck.
Hmm.
It is defined by feeling fulfilled and happy. It is defined by your 80-year-old self who would look back and say that was a life well lived, right?
Hmm.
And what's important to that 80-year-old self is not like whether you kept up with the boys or whatever we're trying to do. What's important is that you had a life that was rich and meaningful and filled with the things and the people and the
Hmm.
time that matters. So if women are want to be ambitious and they want the corner office, then I want to tear down the structures and the constraints that are stopping them.
Yeah.
But I am never, ever going to blame women for the fact that there aren't as many of us in those positions of power because it's not us that are holding us back. And that is why I shared that statistic of the 12 years after an MBA, the 90th percentile of female earnings was the male mean,
Hmm.
because that statistic tells us it's not our fault because the 90th percentile are the women that we all aspire to be. They're the women who leaned the F in. They're the
Yeah.
women who exhibited the grit. They're the women who were ambitious. And there were structural forces that were standing in their way.
Hmm.
So I am going to let go of that as like a metric by which I'm going to judge myself or anybody else. And I'm going to say that who I'm disappointed in when I see that there's not more women in senior leadership positions are the people with actual power. I'm
Hmm.
disappointed in our policymakers. I'm disappointed in our corporate leaders. I'm disappointed in the men who aren't being
Yeah.
supportive at home, who aren't picking the kid up from daycare so that
Right.
she can, stay late so that she can, lean into her career. But it is not the women who are letting us down.
Totally. Amen. Yes. I was curious. You have such expertise in this, and I think you probably speak to or maybe advise in this way. Again, no woman has to want to be at a certain level in private organizations. But I am curious what you've seen. What kinds of things do help essentially like retain mothers? Because one thing that I've in all of these conversations, which have been really fascinating and rewarding, even selfishly, personally, that these are women who they have survived essentially, or they have found a way to reach their metrics beyond this. But let's just say the C-suite big check job, and they appear and say, and they seem convincingly happy. I'm curious is what allowed that path, what enabled that path to be true, what can companies do a little bit more of to make that happen? And then the last piece I will say is from these conversations, those that are seemingly happy and essentially not entirely drained all the time by what they're doing have found a way to be doing work that they find meaningful, and they get to do it at a very high level with great impact. So I do think there are structural things that companies can do. I also am curious about this idea of helping um, companies kind of coach women through what they might not even realize, the sort of shift in what they expect from their job post having kids. That there's more that companies could be doing there to keep people. Anyways, I was just curious what you've seen. You mentioned at the end of your book, you have some suggestions there, but just if there are high level things that seem to be particularly useful for the leaders that are listening who want to
Well,
retain incredible mothers and parents in general, what can they be thinking about?
Well, there's a graph in my book that's called The Squeeze, where I show
Yeah.
that this like mountain of childcare and housework that hits us kind of at midlife, and then it's often at a time where we're money squeezed as well because our career investments haven't paid off yet. And the biggest thing, like I think that graph is so important for women to understand and for firms to understand, because the thing that was like life-changing for me about seeing that graph was realizing how temporary it is. Was seeing that like, oh, this is real. This period of life is really that hard. This is the like,
Yes.
why are we so effing tired all the time period of life. This
Yes.
is the I hate my husband, I'm thinking about divorce period of life. Okay.
Yes. I call it the
I can quit
trenches.
my job
Totally.
yesterday period of life. Okay.
Yes.
It's real and it passes. And
Mhm.
so for women, I want you to kind of plot out accordingly. And so one of the things that I say that I think surprises people is I say, when you're in the squeeze, it's okay to make choices that aren't sustainable because you don't need to sustain them. This
Mm.
period is going to pass. So for you to say, oh, I can't hire a housekeeper, that's not financially feasible. That would mean we wouldn't be saving as much for retirement. I would say, fine. Actually, that makes a lot of sense for the next 3 years.
Mhm.
Save less for retirement right now while you're paying for daycare, while you're, needing
Yeah.
this extra time and this extra help and this extra support, and then save more when your kids are in full-time
Mhm.
school. And because I can show you in the data, your time spent with them goes down. And so you're going to be able to take on more of this work yourself, and you're not going to need to hire as much help,
Yes.
right?
And companies should
So,
provide that.
yes. So then on the firm side, what do the firms need to do? The firms can say, am I willing to make an investment? Am I willing to make an investment for 3 to 5 years in getting somebody through the squeeze so that then I get to reap the benefits of their entire productive life?
Mm.
Because the tragedy, the place where I don't see a tragedy if there's women who are making choices that kind of realign for this period where they want to be really present for their kids. I don't see a tragedy. The tragedy that I see are the women who made that choice and then never figured out a way to get back into the fast lane, even though they would desire it.
Mhm.
And now their human capital, all of those investments that they made and that firms made in them, has been sidelined because they
Mhm.
took a one way exit when there should be more of a parallel path, right? And when
Mhm.
you're driving on the highway, there's the express route and there's the business route. We should be able to take the business route, right? Move at a little slower pace, but rejoin the express lanes when and if we want to, right?
Mhm.
And so firms need to figure out how to make that investment. And the ones that do are going to reap the benefit of then you have these amazing people that you've retained because it's really expensive to invest a lot of money in hiring and recruiting amazing women and then training them
Mhm.
only to hemorrhage those women when they hit the squeeze, right?
Yes.
So if you create workplace boundaries, if you create a hard stop on in-person, meetings at 5 p.m.,
Mhm.
if you create a rotating on-call schedule so not everybody is working every single weekend, if you figure out a way to build in some redundancies so that people feel like they can take a day off when their kid is sick and it doesn't provoke a major crisis, right?
Mhm.
If you can retain not just women, but working parents through the squeeze, your firm is going to win.
Yeah. That's such an important unlock that it is finite.
Yeah.
I was almost thinking like for they if you're lucky you get parental leave. Google was very generous. We got 5 to 6 months, which was incredible. Full pay and all that jazz. But I was thinking there should be even beyond that, like within the first this is again, it sounds unrealistic, but let's dream big. For the first 3 years post a
Yeah.
kid, there should be really hard boundaries about like you can't work after 5 p.m. You can't go on more than one work trip, travel trip for
Yeah.
then in every quarter or something. That's very interesting. Yes. Um, okay, we've bounced.
And
Oh
then you
yeah,
should be able to rejoin, like, that shouldn't permanently sideline you. I think that's the
correct.
distinction, because the way a lot of women solve for this is by changing their role or changing their path in the firm. So, like, at McKinsey, it was like, instead of being client-facing consultant, I'm gonna move into a support role. I'm gonna move
Yes.
into this behind-the-scenes role, right? And then there's no way to get back. And so it's
Yes.
gotta be a two-way flow. And so if you can be temporary boundaries or guardrails that then we're gonna remove, that's a great way to do it.
Totally. It's such we could talk for like 5 more hours because I feel like the companies right now are less incentivized than ever to like
Yeah.
invest in humans. Like they're desperately looking for ways to offload and have AI replace. So it's such a crisis. It affects everybody, but I feel like it's an uphill
Yeah, but
battle to get people to invest.
they're gonna also face a huge crisis of leadership in the future, because if you
Yeah.
don't invest in junior people, then you end up without senior people. And so I
Mhm.
think, AI is not gonna replace the
Yeah.
thinking and the communicating and the leading. AI
Mhm.
cannot replace that. And so the things that women excel at, which are managing people, which are, building communal power, which are inspiring leadership,
Mhm.
um,
those things are fundamentally human qualities and they're going to be in high demand. And so I still think that there's a massive opportunity for the firms that are able to figure this out.
Yeah. And the imperative to think for the long term. I think we're in a period of what feels sort of like different forms of crisis, which makes you the instinct is to think short
Yeah.
term and make it through now.
Orderly
Um,
profit.
yes, totally. Man, okay. Well, I need to have you back because we have so many things to talk about. Or I need to come to Philadelphia and we should hang out. But we do like to close with these sentimental questions, which is a pivot from where what we were just talking about. But really quickly, we like to ask all our guests these questions. The first being, if you go back to your new mom self and tell her one thing, what would it be? And I know you had a first child in a different, like your first marriage, you took on a child. So I sort of leave it to you to define how you would when you were a new mom.
Oh, yeah, which is a great thank you for saying that, and yes, because I raised a step kid, and,
Yeah.
I think with my step kid, the biggest thing that I needed to know, um, was that, like, I was part of the family. I think that that was, like,
Mm.
in regard to our household was set up, and, I commuted from New York to Philadelphia for 7.5 years at the expense of, my health and well-being and sanity and career.
Mhm.
And just to go back and say, like, when you make choices, like, yes, because wanted so badly to rewrite the script that was, how I felt like I was parented, where I felt like
Mhm.
kids weren't the priority.
Yeah.
So to say, when you make choices to prioritize your kids, you are part of that equation too. You
Mm.
can't lose sight of yourself as part of that
Mhm.
equation. So that would be that. And then when I, had a newborn, it's almost cliche because I think a lot of people say it, but just to understand that, like, those phases are gonna pass and these
Mhm.
moments are gonna pass and the things that feel hard and impossible at one moment are gonna be gone the next. So,
Mhm.
I did have that wisdom when I had a newborn the second time, and I just found it so much more joyful because instead of getting so caught up in, like, "Oh my god, this is some crisis because she's not
Yes.
sleeping or she's not napping in the crib or she's not that," just, like, letting it go and being like, "Yep, and we'll figure that out, or it'll pass, or she'll change, and then there will be a new problem, so let's not get so hung up on she has to act or do this way right now," and I was able to
Yes.
just enjoy the moment more
Such
because of that.
important wisdom. Yes, totally. Um, is there I'm gonna use this is gonna force you to think of one thing, which is tough because there are so many things. But what would make motherhood easier, or what would have made it easier along the way so far? Is there a singular thing, concept?
Community makes it a lot easier, and
Yeah.
so if you are someone who feels like you're doing it all yourself, or even just you and your partner are doing it all yourselves, are there structural changes that you can make to, like, have more community? And yes, it would be lovely if that support came from our government and was in some ways more structural, but it's
Yeah.
something that we find for ourselves as well. So are there
Yeah.
ways to, make that change? And for me, that was a move of city, to a place where I was able to have more of that community.
Yeah, I loved hearing you describe that be true in Philly or the Philadelphia area, because it is to this point of like you aspired to have that big paycheck, get the big house, and the blah blah blah, and you lose all sense of community. And some of the happiest people, especially parents that I've found, are not living in this ultra rich neighborhood, and they actually get to connect with their neighbors and kind of be in it together. So really important. Another great nugget. Okay, our last question is. Your kids might listen to this one day.
Mhm.
Is there anything you'd want to say to them?
I just got so wistful thinking about,
I
them
know.
being older and being, and that was having an 8-year-old as I went through, like, writing this book, he was part of he could consume some of these things I was putting
Yeah.
out in the world, as he could read the articles about our family, or, he could read parts of the book. And so, yes, it is interesting to think about them as an audience,
Yeah.
to some of the professional work that we do too, and not just, as this other separate part of our lives. But I would just say that I hope that they feel agency to, like, maximize their own utility and to carve their own path through life. And I would hope that we are parenting them in a way um that they know it's not what we want that matters, or it's not what, we envision for them that matters. That they're their own person and that they get to carve that out at the same time as being in community with others and hopefully, contributing net positive into the world.
Hmm. Oh, Corinne. You're so cool. You're such a rock star. Good job. I'm so glad you're out there like raising the next generation. This is great. Thank you. This has been such a joy.
We're such kindred spirits, Sarah. So yes, let's please continue to stay in touch.
I need more Philly time. I feel like Boston and Philly have something in common, so makes sense.
New York's like little cousins.
Yes, but fuck New York. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and survive January relatively unscathed. And thank you for spending time with me.
Yes, may all our households stay healthy. That's all we need.
Yes, health, totally.
To get through January.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Corinne, what a gem. I want to go to Philly and hang. But in the meantime, let me give Lady V a call and tell her all about it. Hi, V.
Hi. I love you. I'm so happy to hear your voice.
I feel like every time we do these, people are like, do you guys never talk to each other? Because there's always like a high level of enthusiasm. V.
No, we're just always that
Could it
excited.
possibly be you?
No, I think it's excitement.
Oh my God, it is. It is. And it's genuine. I just feel you make me giddy. You say
That's
that about
really
me.
funny. Have you ever talked on the phone before? ?
Oh my God, is this working? Is this how this works?
I love that it comes off that excited because that's how excited I am.
Yes.
We did it. Good for us.
Oh, truly good for us. Okay, I just spoke with a wonderful brain and a wonderful person, Corinne Low, who is a professor at Wharton and mother of 3 in a very modern family way.
Yes, tell us.
She was married, her first marriage to a man, he had a kid already. So she has a stepchild. I'm always step and a half always confuse me. You can't have anyways, stepchild, and then had a child with ex-husband and then divorced, which is an amazing story, or just a courageous story, as it is for anyone, but I will tell you more. But and then had a second biological child, effectively kind of her third child, with her now wife. And
crushing it.
Yes. And wrote a book called Having It All, which we might be a familiar
Fan
phrase
favorite
to you.
question.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it is appropriately trending and obviously very relevant. But you'll appreciate one of my friends. I was texting with you before the interview, partly because I was nervous, as I told her. I was like, I feel like very honored that you're here. But I don't know. Like she's a professor of economics. I feel like you must be
I've
like,
never
you're not
learned
an idiot.
anything. I'm stupid. How are you today?
I know, but then I had to remind myself I'm not here to like scrutinize the economics, but we were here to talk about life and what all of it means. And thankfully she was totally wonderful and very easy to talk to and very smart. And my first question, which I told you that I was like going to try to not ask, was one of the themes through the book sort of came out as like, sounds like just dads are just that all dads suck and are just terrible, never present, like don't know how to be a partner, don't know how to be a dad, or just like lost dogs.
Hello, what?
I told her, I was like, I wasn't going to ask this question, but let me ask it first so we can get it out of the way.
I love you.
Because it very much reminded me of our Mothers After Dark discussion about All Her Fault, where we were all like, wait, are dads this bad?
Yep.
So we kind of dig into that. And I think one of the themes was maybe that to find a good partner is A, one of the most important things you can do, but also B, is like very hard and a lot of partners are deficient.
It's like finding a partner and finding a nanny. Why is it so hard? This should be easier. What's happening?
So true. Equally useful.
Truly. I'll take one or the other. I don't even need both.
Yeah. So the conversation turned into like an unintentional love story to Jason, because I was like, I just have to say what I find interesting is, and of course, I don't know. I was just like, I feel like Jason isn't like that. Like he doesn't like look forward to going to work so he can be like, get out of the house any more than I would feel. And really would like to be home as much as he possibly can, and is frustrated the way in this category. A woman would feel frustrated not be able to be there, and acknowledging all the work that everyone's doing on all sides that is underappreciated, whatever. So that was also kind of interesting, where she was like, maybe not. And so to me, it was kind of more, we got into this conversation about how it was less about like in my circumstance, within like the couple dynamic, the themes of having it all are basically like, what are all the structural things that are making it hard for women to live as mothers, like to have full lives and essentially have it all. And for some people that's micro, you have the wrong partner. Some people it's macro, or for everybody it's macro, and some people are lucky that they found the good partner. Anyway, so Jason, if you're listening, you better fucking
Love
be listening.
Jason, because you're listening, he fucking better.
I said nice things about you on the internet. So anyways, so that was funny. But then so to the divorce thing, I think important theme nugget that I wanted to hit again, because I told her, she was like, yada, yada, yada. And then I was like, decided this wasn't working. And I decided to like leave my husband and all these things, which she said, which is just, it must be so scary to confront the idea of leaving a marriage. And so I mentioned,
especially with kids.
Yes. So I gave her a shout out for that. And what she said was, I thought really poignant, which was that she was like, thank you for saying that. And something that she sort of regrets in hindsight was that it wasn't until she realized how much it was negatively affecting her son that that's what it took for her to do something.
So not her, but those
and sort of
her.
In that was this like recognition of how much, kind of a shift in thinking moving forward of like, put yourself, it sounds so easy or so simple, but like, putting herself first, and what are the things, when is her happiness worth making changes for? And thematically over time, she also talked about how like we got into mom guilt, and she was like, part of she's like, I disagree with mom guilt. And it's more that, kids are better off when the parent is happy. So if we're unable to be at kid things, but we're doing something that makes us personally happy, that's good. And then if otherwise so we shouldn't feel guilt. And then otherwise mom guilt is misframed. It should be more like, there's something that I really wanted to be able to do and I couldn't do it. And shift that to thinking about, are there ways that I could adjust my life so that I could be there? And that's at the root of a lot of her book, is kind of figuring out in different ways, like, and using different terms and bringing economics and economic principles into it, but like thinking about how to create what is your all in this framing of like having it all, which she talks about having it almost, which is that there are inevitable constraints, but like what are you essentially optimizing for in your life, and being very honest about that. And then that allows you to make trade-offs that don't feel so riddled with quote unquote guilt that isn't actually guilt. So anyway, I felt that was like a key theme that I'm walking away with.
Love that.
Yeah. And the other piece too was, this was my other favorite thing that I mentioned on the interview, but also as I was reading the book, she has a couple sections where she talks about the importance of not comparing. So her principles are in the book, the sort of metrics to be optimizing for, to consider when you're trying to figure out what you want your life to look like, are kind of, what is your, she calls it your personal utility function, which is basically a way of saying, what are you optimizing for in life? Like, do you want to have, this is oversimplified, but are you optimizing for community and connection? Or are you optimizing for nice things? Blah, blah, blah. And then what are your constraints? So like, do you have a lot of money? Do you not have a lot of money? Do you have limited time? Do you have a lot of time? Do you have a ailing parent? Like, what is your like gravity problem, so to speak? Things that are like, you can't change. And the importance of not comparing yourself to people that are optimizing for something different or have different constraints. And that to me was really helpful as someone who's like, I could do so many different things. If I look at someone who's, I don't know,
right,
running a tech startup so successfully, or like crushing it at Google still or something, where I'm like, oh my God, I feel insecure about that. Instead, she was like, you have to remember that you chose these things because you wanted something different, which is like, duh. But anyways, it was just a good reminder for all of us, I thought.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
And ultimately, it's just very hard to. The killer stat that I found in there that I still think about is basically, I'm going to butcher it in simplifying it, but the simplified version was, if you look at the highest achieving MBA graduate woman, after 12 years in her career, she moves down to reach the professional heights of the average man.
Oh, what? Oh, God.
I know. And yes. And she also, within that, she was like, there are all sorts of societal things that make that true. Discrimination, lack of leave, and all these things. But, and I think nicely, she was also very, in the context of all this lean and ambition stuff, she was like, she thinks of having it all as kind of the answer or the alternative or antidote to lean in culture. In that she's like, I don't care if women don't need to want to own the corner office. That isn't like the singular metric of like a successful life. And so I think her whole philosophy is really about looking at your full life, and optimizing for that versus, and that might come with trade-offs, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So anyways, she was cool.
Wow. I love this.
Yeah.
That's staggering. That
I know.
It's really going to fuck me up.
I know. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's
truly
not surprising.
It's not surprising, but it's just sobering, sad. I don't know.
Yeah. So she was cool. She also was talking about, there are many, many takeaways, but I think the other two things that I really think about after our conversation in the book are, one, if you're going to get married, marry the right person, or don't marry the wrong person. And then live in the right place. Because she talked about, because she was working at Wharton in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, from New York City. And the cost of living in New York was crazy. Plus the commute to Philly was horrible. And she was like the breadwinner of the family. This is where I was just kind of like, wow, this feels like a really bad setup. Her husband wasn't like, at a certain point, had left his job, was starting a business, wasn't making any money. And she was like the primary breadwinner for a long time. It was just making sacrifice after sacrifice and carrying all the load at home. So it was just a bad thing.
Yes.
And then, but she moved to Philly where she's like, I don't have to keep up with the crazy Joneses. Like, everyone goes to public school. Like, we have community. Like, it just was kind of a nice, I don't know, like, I feel like this has been a theme across a lot of our guests, which is there's a way that, I mean, literally the title of the book, the having it all, the big house and the fancy suburbs, et cetera, like how much you actually like lose.
Yeah.
Both in the process of getting that and once you're there, what you miss.
What is that saying? Like, the comparison is the thief of joy, or something like that?
Yes, I said this to her too. That's exactly it. Yes. Yes.
We're so in tune, but it's so true. Yeah.
I know.
I love this.
Yeah, so it was great. And I highly recommend the book. I told us in the beginning as well, after we talked about Do Dad Suck, which was like, I feel like there's a left brain, right brain. Like, she comes at this with like an objective economics lens where she's like, follow the data. And that when you're trying to find the right partner, try to avoid measuring that based on love, essentially. And I was like, wait a second. Like, there's a lot of my idealism sort of doesn't live as heavily in the book as I'm a romantic, I think, ultimately. Where I'm like, just because the data says that doesn't mean it's true, or doesn't mean it has to be true for me. Which is interesting. So anyways, but she appreciated that tension. She was like, I'm glad that's come through in the book, which is like, there's this dance that all women do, which is like embrace being full woman and feminine, all these things, but also like know that there are trade-offs. And in an American patriarchal society, like you might be punished for them. So it's, I don't know. It's uplifting and sobering at the same time.
Truly.
Yes. Cool. Well, do you have it all? What are you doing? Do Do you have it all?
Yeah, no, I definitely have it all. I feel pretty good about literally everything.
Perfect.
So no lessons to work on here.
That's an awesome way to start. We're recording this in the beginning of 2026. So I'm
Hell
glad
yes.
that is
Starting
how life is for you.
2026 with it all.
Yes. Only
Hey,
downhill from here.
check in with me by July.
Oh my God. It's been like an ice storm around here. And we have the worst
Insane.
driveway of all time, which
Yeah,
is,
that's not
you should
good.
have watched me try to drag the garbage bins up the
No,
driveway.
just don't do garbage. Just don't do garbage
But we
until
can't. We create, nobody, don't listen to this.
way
We
too much
create
trash.
so much garbage.
It turns out.
And recycling.
Yeah.
But if we missed, I actually don't know what we would do if we missed a garbage day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, you need
Anyway.
to create like a police system or something.
Yes, we do.
Maybe the kids can do something with a 3D printer first. I don't know. You gotta get your son on that.
Yeah. Or we need to dig like a pit with a cover on it on the front yard so that we just like hide them in there, and then
that's exactly what you need. Yes.
Yeah. But
just add that to your list of
I'll add it.
Accessible projects to do.
I will.
Where's your joy at today? Anything?
Here's a little joy, which is probably going to be out of sync from when this episode runs, but I was thinking about, I hate New Year's resolutions and all those things. Like, there's just so much pressure, and I hate the idea of like hit the ground running in 2026. Like, I just feel like we're waking up from a fog, and like kind of if you can just keep going, that's good. But I unintentionally, it came to me, this idea of like I've always been curious about these ideas, like what's your word or intention for the year, which I also don't entirely, like, I'm not going to tattoo a word and commit to it. Sure. But one came to me that I felt good about, which was like, it's the year of, quote, yet. Meaning I have such a hard time I experience panic if something isn't where I expect it to be right now. And I want to try to figure out how to be more about, it's just that it's not that way yet.
I like
which
that a
kind
lot.
of loosens the pressure for me as someone who's messed up. But being like, if I don't know, if we don't have enough Instagram followers, like, not yet, or if we don't have enough sponsors, or we don't have enough, like, I think it's just a not yet.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. You can borrow it if you want.
I will. Well, I'm borrowing my word from the year, actually, coincidentally, from a previous guest. Did you see Tamara's post about her word of the year?
No.
It is enough. And I was like, I like that. She posted about that. And I just think that as someone who's constantly being like, ugh, I could have done more. I'm not doing, like, I could do more with this, or I should do that, or whatever. It's like, I've done enough. Like, my capacity right now may ebb and flow. And like, this is, in this moment, this is enough. And it's not settling, like, not in a settling way or a becoming complacent with like not challenging myself, but in a like, not, detrimental and just like unachievable accomplishment way. So
totally. And in the J-Lo way.
Exactly.
That's what I also always think about, is the word, when I see enough, I think of that movie, which I need to rewatch.
Anyway, gonna rewatch that tonight.
Because you always tell me maybe it's not that deep, but no, I agree. Yeah, I feel like J-Lo should make a different version of that movie, and it should be about this. She's someone who could probably appreciate, like, learn to embrace what is enough.
So J-Lo, if you're listening,
this one's for you, and come on the podcast.
And we love you.
No, I'll just be like, you're just saying no, not yet.
Not yet. That's enough. You don't have to say anything else. We'll talk to you soon. So good.
Oh, good job, Tamara. I need to read that.
It's a great little post on LinkedIn. Shout out
to the LinkedIn life and Half Moon Hustle. Good stuff.
So good.
All right. Well,
I love you.
We can sign off. We can go soldier on. Fight another day.
I love you. You
Thank you
got
for
this.
debriefing on all these things.
Thanks for debriefing to me. I
You're
appreciate
so
you.
welcome. You're so welcome. Good luck out there.
love
I
ya.
love you so much.
Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.